Aisha's fingers trembled slightly as she arranged the final white lily into the vase, smoothing the petals with a gentle touch. Sunlight spilled through the living room windows, painting gold across the polished wooden floor, and for a moment she allowed herself to believe that everything was perfect. The table was set just right, 2 plates gleaming, silverware polished, and the faint aroma of her husband's favorite meal, grilled salmon with lemon butter, wafting through the air. It was their 7th wedding anniversary, a milestone she had been quietly counting down for weeks. She had planned every detail meticulously, the flowers, the dinner, even the playlist of soft jazz she knew Ryan loved. Every move was designed to remind him and herself that their life together was a story of love and devotion. When the door clicked open, Aisha's heart leapt. Ryan stepped in, tall and confident as always, but there was something different in his posture tonight, a distant, distracted energy that immediately unsettled her. He tossed his keys onto the counter, loosened his tie, and muttered something about a long day. There was no sparkle in his eyes, no warmth in his smile. "I made your favorite," she said softly, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. "I thought we could have a quiet dinner together." Ryan barely looked up, nodding absent-mindedly as he dropped onto the couch. After a few moments, he reached behind him and handed her a small, awkwardly wrapped box. "Happy anniversary," he said, his tone flat, almost rehearsed. Aisha's heart sank as she unwrapped it. Inside lay a necklace, cheap and generic, something she could have found in any airport gift shop. She forced a smile, straining to keep her disappointment hidden. "It's beautiful," she whispered, trying to convince herself that his gesture still mattered. That night, as Ryan fell asleep, she lingered beside him, staring at the ceiling as her mind raced. The familiar comfort of their home felt foreign and cold. Then, as if drawn by some invisible force, she glanced at his phone on the nightstand. A single message blinked on the screen. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, my love. Lara kiss Mark." Her stomach dropped. Her chest tightened. Her best friend, the one she had confided in for years, and her husband, the man she had loved with everything she had. Aisha felt the room tilt around her. The soft hum of the air conditioner and Ryan's even breathing mocked her. She blinked back tears, her fingers clenching the bed sheets. The betrayal was a physical weight pressing against her chest, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. For 3 days she said nothing. She smiled at Ryan, laughed at his jokes, kissed him good night. She wore the mask of the perfect wife, while inside her world quietly cracked. Every whispered conversation, every secret glance he shared with Lara, replayed in her mind like a cruel montage. And then something shifted, the tears stopped, the trembling subsided. In their place rose a quiet, cold determination. She would not confront him immediately, not in anger or despair. She would wait. She would observe. And eventually she would act. Because Aisha understood something that Ryan never would. Betrayal was not just an ending. It could be the beginning of a reckoning, one that would be hers to right. Aisha didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, wrapped in a soft blanket, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. Her mind replayed the message again and again. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, my love. Lara kiss Mark," until the words felt like sharp knives cutting through her chest. She had thought she knew the man she married, thought she understood loyalty and trust, but now everything seemed like a lie, a carefully constructed illusion. The following evening she made her decision. Quietly, without telling anyone, she followed Ryan after work. He drove to a small, dimly lit restaurant downtown, one Aisha had never visited, one she didn't even know existed. And there he was, sitting across from Lara, her best friend, laughing in a way that once would have been reserved only for her. Aisha felt the room spin. Her knees weakened, but she held herself upright, forcing her trembling hands to rest calmly on the car door. She watched as Ryan reached for Lara's hand, intertwining fingers, exchanging secret smiles that spoke volumes. Each laugh, each subtle touch, was a confirmation of what her heart had already begun to suspect. Her world had been quietly stolen from her. Driving home, the city lights blurred as tears streamed down her face. Rage, sorrow, and disbelief collided inside her like a storm. She wanted to scream, to confront him, to tear the truth out of him by force. But deep down, she knew that immediate confrontation would only feed his arrogance. Instead, she decided to gather every fragment of proof, every undeniable piece of his betrayal. She would make him see in a way he couldn't ignore. Over the next several days, Aisha began to document everything. She recorded conversations subtly, noting the tone of his voice, the lies he told casually. She saved screenshots, messages, and emails, a meticulous archive of evidence. Every item was a shard of truth she could wield, should the moment of reckoning come. And as she did this, a strange clarity settled over her. The pain of betrayal remained, but beneath it rose something stronger: purpose. At the same time, she began writing in her journal, a private confession of her heartbreak. Each word was raw, each sentence a testament to the love she had given and the deceit she had endured. Through writing, she found a strange sense of liberation. The rage that once threatened to consume her transformed into something more controlled. A quiet, simmering fire that would eventually demand its justice. Then came the idea of the gift. It was not a gift in the traditional sense, not something meant to charm or please. This was different. It would be a symbol, a vessel carrying everything he had taken from her, the love, the trust, and the betrayal itself. It would be beautiful, heart-wrenching, and inescapable. Aisha began crafting a small wooden box, hand, carved with intricate designs. Inside, she would place a letter, a photo torn in half, and a USB drive containing proof of his affair. Every detail mattered. Every piece was designed to cut through his denial and force him to face the truth he had ignored. And as she worked, she realized that this plan was not just revenge. It was her liberation. She would no longer be a victim, no longer be silent. The box would speak for her when her voice could no longer be heard. By the time the sun set each evening, painting her apartment in gold and crimson, Aisha felt a sense of purpose she hadn't known since the betrayal began. She was no longer just a wife scorned. She was a woman determined, a woman who would reclaim her power, one deliberate, beautiful act at a time. Ryan's birthday arrived with the kind of calm that felt almost too perfect. Aisha had spent the morning preparing, her hands steady as she arranged the flowers, polished the wooden box one final time, and placed it on the dining table like a silent challenge. It was beautiful in its simplicity, unassuming from the outside, but carrying a weight that Ryan could never imagine. When he arrived home, he seemed unaware of the care she had taken. He walked past the table, dropping his coat carelessly on the sofa, and muttered a distracted thanks. Before heading to the kitchen, Aisha's stomach tightened, but she maintained her composure, her smile carefully measured. "I have a birthday gift for you," she said softly, her voice calm, almost serene. Ryan glanced at her lazily, raising an eyebrow. "You didn't have to," he said, a hint of amusement in his tone. "I already have everything I need." She placed the box in front of him. "Open it," she said. He picked it up with mild curiosity, flipping the lid with a smirk. Aisha watched his expression carefully, noting the flicker of annoyance as he lifted the letter first. He skimmed it, his eyes narrowing slightly, then turned his attention to the USB drive. Finally, he noticed the torn photograph of them on their wedding day. "This is sentimental nonsense," he scoffed, tossing the entire box onto the counter. Without a second thought, he picked it up again and threw it into the trash can, muttering seriously, "Aisha, why do you do this?" A chill ran through her, but it wasn't the fear she had felt before. Instead, it was a cold satisfaction that seeped into her bones. Her eyes met his calm and unwavering. "It's okay," she said softly, almost tenderly. "It's yours now." Ryan laughed, a short, dismissive sound, and turned away, retreating to the living room. He didn't notice the quiet steadiness in her eyes, the way her lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. The box was gone from her hands, but the truth it carried was already set into motion. That night, Aisha went to bed early, leaving the apartment as empty as it had been when Ryan arrived home. She had packed her bags over the past few days, moving quietly and deliberately. When he awoke the next morning, the bed beside him was empty. The closet held only his clothes, the home now silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. On the kitchen counter lay a single envelope. Ryan picked it up and opened it, expecting a hasty note, maybe a brief explanation. Instead, the paper held a message so simple and yet so devastating. "I gave you my heart once. You threw it away. Don't look for me." He stared at the words, a creeping sense of unease settling in his chest. Something inside him shifted, a subtle recognition that perhaps this was not just another one of Aisha's emotional gestures. He felt an unfamiliar weight of regret, though he had no idea of its full magnitude. Meanwhile, Aisha felt a quiet liberation as she walked away from the apartment. The plan she had set into motion was already in motion, and she felt a power she had never known before. She wasn't just leaving a man, she was leaving behind the pain, the lies, and the betrayal. The box, though discarded, would carry the consequences he deserved. And in the silence that followed, Aisha finally allowed herself to breathe, free, determined, and ready for the life that awaited her beyond the shadows of betrayal. Days turned into weeks, and Ryan's world began to unravel in ways he could never have anticipated. At first, he assumed Aisha's disappearance was temporary, another one of her quiet retreats. A dramatic pause in their otherwise ordinary life, but soon, reality hit with a force that left him breathless. The wooden box, discarded carelessly in the trash, had found a life of its own. A janitor at the apartment building had discovered it, curious about the small, intricately carved box that didn't belong to him. Inside, he found the letter, the torn photograph, and the USB drive. Perhaps he thought it was evidence of corporate malfeasance or personal drama. He uploaded the files anonymously to the internet. Within days, Ryan's life imploded. His company faced public scrutiny after confidential emails and financial records from the USB leaked online. Investors panicked, lawsuits piled up, and employees whispered in the hallways. Ryan's name became a scandalous headline: CEO entangled in fraud and infidelity. Lara disappeared as quickly as she had entered his life, leaving him alone in the wreckage of both his career and his personal life. Every evening, Ryan returned to his apartment, to an empty home that echoed with absence. The bed remained untouched on one side, the silence of the walls deafening. And on the kitchen counter, a small wooden splinter, a piece of the box he had thrown away, served as a subtle reminder of what he had lost. For the first time, regret pierced him like a knife. Meanwhile, Aisha's life had begun anew. She had opened an art gallery called The Gift, a space filled with sculptures, paintings, and installations that reflected her journey, the heartbreak, the betrayal, and ultimately, the reclamation of her life. Her first exhibit was titled, "What He Threw Away." The centerpiece of the gallery was a haunting painting, a man standing in a storm of fire and shadow, reaching desperately for a golden heart just beyond his grasp. It was a portrait of Ryan and of every man who had once thought love could be taken for granted. One evening, by coincidence or fate, Ryan wandered into the gallery. His eyes fell immediately on the painting, and a jolt of recognition coursed through him. The plaque beneath read, "To the one who taught me what love isn't." Time seemed to stop. He understood, in a sudden, terrifying clarity, that the woman he had discarded so carelessly, the woman who had given everything, had engineered a reckoning he could never escape. Aisha approached quietly, her presence serene and poised. Ryan opened his mouth to speak, to beg forgiveness, to explain, but no words could undo what had been done. Her eyes met his, calm, unwavering, filled with a quiet strength that he had never truly noticed. "Some gifts," she said softly, her voice steady, "aren't meant to be kept. They're meant to be learned from." And with that, she turned away, leaving him standing alone in the gallery, staring at the ruins of what he had once taken for granted. He realized, finally, what she had truly hidden inside the gift. Her heart, pure and vulnerable, offered once and discarded by his own hand. But it was too late. Aisha walked on, free, empowered, and luminous, carrying with her not just the memory of love lost, but the triumphant knowledge that she had reclaimed herself. The gift had done its work. She had turned betrayal into liberation, heartbreak into art, and in doing so, she had left Ryan to confront the consequences of a life he had thrown away.